Hey guys, Yuji here, and today I've got a PvP guide for Dragonflight Season 4. So first things first, everything is super similar to last season. The only actual changes were the stats on tier pieces, and PvE gear is also good and accessible now, but hopefully it really won't matter for Reck. I'll talk about it when we get to gear though, but right off the bat, let's talk about talents. So for the most part, things haven't changed. You play this build and change a couple of things depending on the matchup brackets. So into double magic teams, you can just completely drop Bop, go into something like Holy Ages, and go Blessing Spell Warding instead. Then if you're also playing in Shuffle, you can just completely drop Healing Hands, because you're never really going to get the second Lay on Hands, so there's not really a point in actually playing it. Then you can go into Holy Aegis. So now you have two things of Holy Aegis. Another thing you can do is you can swap between Blinding Light and Repentance, just depending on what comp you're playing. Rep is usually pretty good when you're playing with a caster, especially like a Warlock that has the Fear DR. It's just not really that good to play Blinding Light when you have something that can spam out that Fear DR already, since it just kind of makes it kind of pointless. But the left side that's pretty much it. It's just play around those couple changes and you're going to be completely fine. Everything else has just been the same for 3 seasons in a row. The right side is also pretty much the exact same. The only difference that you can make is something that I like to do is I drop Judge and Executioner for Vanguard of Justice. This makes it so that your Templars cost 4 holy power instead of 3, but it buffs it by 15%. It says 20, but it's nerfed to PvP. This can make it so your Templars can hit insanely hard. I've hit almost 400k Templars and I'm not even fully geared yet, which is pretty insane. This can just make it so your burst is a lot more impactful, but it does make your consistent damage a little bit worse and can make your rotation a little clunky. So use it at your own risk. I just think that the burst is a bit better right now. But yeah, that's about it for talents. So now on to PvP talents. So first off, your standard is going to be Luminescence, Orb of Reckoning, and Blessing of Sanctuary, but you can swap out Luminescence for a lot of different things. One thing is Blessing of Spell Warding. You play this when you're playing into anything that has double magic damage or magic damage plus a really consistent purge, since it'll make Bop kind of feel useless. And when you're playing this, you can swap off of Bop, since you don't need to actually have Bop unlocked to make Spell Warding work, which is kind of cool. It just gives you an extra talent on your Paladin side. Then into teams where you kind of want to spam dispel a dot, you can go Judgment of the Pure, Spell Warding, and Lumi, but you can sometimes run it instead of Orb of Reckoning with Magic Bop if you feel like you really need it, but you end up losing a lot of burst because of that, so I really don't recommend doing it most of the time. The last thing you can do is you can go Searing Glare. Generally, just double melee Fist Reaver is the best time to run it, since it's kind of just a triple CC. The Mist Reaver is usually forced to either use magic and dispel 1 DPS or dispel himself, which just makes it so that it's pretty much a hard CC, except actually, so a hidden tech that some people do is into teams that they know are going to be pressing Searing Glare, you play Judgment of the Pure, and you can dispel your Judgment of the Pure if you Judgment the Paladin after he Searing Glares, since that should be the only debuff they have on you, is almost guaranteed. Just like a little secret tech that some people do. But that's about it for talents. You know, for the most part, you're running this or this, and you can swap sometimes to this or this. It's not really that complicated. But now let's talk about gear. So tier this season is a lot worse than it was last time, just because the stats on the pieces are significantly worse to get. So for 4 set, you're forced to get 2 crit pieces, which isn't very good. I thought 4 set wasn't really worth getting last season when the stats were actually really good for Reck, but now it seems even worse. So I'm personally only playing 2 set. For 2 set, you can either go Helmet plus Shoulders or Helmet plus Pants. Shoulders if you want more verse, Pants if you want more mastery. For embellishments, they haven't really changed since last season. It's Dream Conduit plus PvP boots. As for the pieces to craft, if you're using the Pants 2 set, verse, mastery, craft Shoulders is the best. If you're using the Shoulders build, then it doesn't really matter too much. You can kind of go anything, since every other piece already has mastery on it. You could go crafted mastery ring, but you lose quite a bit of verse from doing it. It's kind of just up to preference if you really don't care about the haste on the normal PvP ring. Now, one more important thing to talk about is PvE gear. So with the Boolean system, I don't know how to say this word, Boolean, I don't is it implemented? Yeah, that system implemented. This season, it's a lot easier to access top-end PvE gear, which makes them a lot more prevalent in Arena. Now, I personally don't know how OP some of these items are, but some pieces I have seen players use in AWC are the rings, necks, and weapons. For the weapon, the only time you ever really want to use it is into comps where you feel like you need a gap closer, which honestly aren't that many since the majority of your damage is ranged. The problem is the stats on it are really bad, so for the most part you'll be losing damage getting it over the normal PvP weapon. Also, I think your melee damage doesn't matter too much based on your actual weapon eye level, since it's actually Crusader strikes, not actual melee, but don't completely trust me on that. I haven't tested it. I didn't get on TR this season, so I haven't tested any of these PvE things quite yet, just speculating based on what I'm seeing off of the tournaments. As for builds, we can kind of go 2 different builds, and then you can kind of do a meme mastery build also, but it's the balance build and the verse build, kind of the same as last season. First off, we have balance build, which I personally like to try to hit 25% haste on and 40% mastery, then get the most possible verse after that. For embellishments, they haven't really changed since last season. It's Dream Conduit plus PvP boots. So for this build, you're going to go here helmet and pants. So the crafted pieces are boots and shoulders. The rest of the pieces are going to be standard PvP mastery gear. Then go both PvP rings with proc trinket and normal trinket, and you're good to go. For gems, you can kind of mix and match depending on what stats you want. I'm going to get a lot more haste gems because I try to get 25% haste. But if you don't really care about that, you can just go full verse mastery gems. Next is the verse build. In this one, you're going to want to go helmet plus shoulders for tier. Then for crafted, it's boots plus which other piece want to go along with it, and also the engineering wrist for versatility. And that's about it. But if you want to be super tryhard, you can also go the PvE gear route and get the crit verse neck and ring, at least one of them. I don't know if you want both because it's a lot of crit. They give you a ton of verse, and I think the passive procs off of Wake, which is a bonus. I don't actually know how important the passive actually is, or if it really does anything, or if they're just getting it because of the stats. I haven't tested it yet, so I can't tell you. But for gems, it's verse mastery gems. Just get as much verse as you can to be as tanky as possible. But yeah, that's about it for gear. Next, let's talk about some helpful macros. So for the most part, you're going to want macros to use all of your utility buttons on your teammates, as we don't really want to have to click their frames to target them. I recommend getting Framesort for these macros. It's an add-on that makes things super easy. I made a video about it a little bit ago, and you can find that in the description below. For now, I'll just tell you which spells you should probably make macros for. First off, Sync, Freedom, Sack, Bop, Magic Bop, and Lay are the most important. Especially Sack and Lay, since they're both off GCD, so being fast with them is essential, and if you have to click on your frames, you're going to be losing damage for no reason. Some other ones that can be really nice to have are Flash and Wog. Also Cleanse if you play it, but this X-Pack it's kind of impossible to get it, so don't really worry about that. Then non-teammate related macros, one I really like is a Final Reckoning macro, which causes it to instantly cast on your cursor when you press it, instead of actually having to click the location like you normally do. Here's that macro. Another one is a Hodge macro for either focus or 1, 2, 3. I personally use 1, 2, 3, but here's both. Then there's kick 1, 2, 3 or focus kick, so you don't have to detarget it to kick, and you can be significantly faster with it. Here's both of those. Then the last one that's kind of niche but still helpful is a cancel freedom and bop macro, so you can prevent mages from stealing your freedom. A helpful tip for the bop one is you can macro it into your bubble, so you'll never be in a situation where you have bop on you and you want to press bubble because you have forbearance. It's a really handy thing you can do to reduce keybinds, but that's about it for macros. Next, here are the add-ons I recommend using. So first off, you need a DR tracker, either Gladius or Esarena, whichever you prefer. Then you need a CD tracker. I think you can do this through Weakores, but the general one everyone uses is Omnibar. It's really helpful. I set up mine kind of weird though. I have the big CDs you need to rack to up at the top of my screen pretty large to make sure I notice them. Then at the bottom is everything else I want to track, and also since I'm melee, I don't really need it except when I'm playing rep. So off to the left I have an interrupt tracker as well, but I only really turn it on when I'm playing a comp where I actually need to use rep. Another really helpful add-on is big debuffs. This is almost essential in ret to make sure you can actually see when your healer's in stuns and other things so that you can sync as fast as possible. Here's my settings for it. I'm not really going to go into details, but this is what works for me. You can kind of just adjust the sizes. I make some of them really big just so I notice them. Next is Omni CD. This one especially helpful when playing with no voice or shuffle. It lets you track your teammates' CDs, which is really helpful, so you can know when your teammates have defensives or CC and when to do a go or use your defensives. It's really nice to have even in normal 3s. Next we have Framesort, which I mentioned before. but it's an add-on that makes it so that you can make macros that target specific roles and also adjust the order of your party frames. So you can make a macro that will always target your healer with sync, so you won't have to make changes or adjustments when playing shuffle. And also you can make it so that, for example, your healer is always on top or you're always on bottom. It's just really helpful to have. Last is either fly plate buffs or weak auras. You can use these to track things like Orb Reckoning or Arbiter to make sure you know when they're coming up. It's really helpful to know when they're up and to play around them. And that's about it for add-ons. Next, let's talk about our rotation. So first off, let's talk about the general rotation. I should have it recording myself doing it as I talk. So usually the best way to talk about it is to give like a priority level on spells and when to use them. So first off, top priority is going to be Templars with 4 or 5 holy power. Next is Hammer of Wrath, then Templars with 3+ holy power, then Templars with 3+ holy power if Judgment debuff is up, then it's Blade of Justice, then Judgment, and then Flash Heal. If you follow that, you should be pretty fine damage-wise. Usually good to spend time hitting the practice dummy to get super used to rotation, so you don't really have to think about it as much. A little tip for when doing this is try not to press Hammer of Wrath constantly because you'll always be able to, with the dummy being in execute range. Try to only use it when you either have wings up or get the proc for it. This way you'll have more accurate practice and your rotation won't feel more clunky in real game, since you won't be able to just constantly be pressing Hammer of Wrath. Now we have our burst rotation. So even if you're playing 3 or 4 cost Templars, it's pretty much the same. So I'll be going over that and also your little mini go every 30 seconds with Wake of Ashes. So first off, for the big go, when you have Crusade, you're going to want to stack it up beforehand. The best way to do this is to get 4 Holy Power, press Crusade, Templars at the exact same time, Divine Toll into Templars, do Hammer of Wrath spam plus Blade of Justice, and then once you're at 10 stacks, get to 4 or 5 Holy Power, and then you're going to Final Reck, Templars, Wake, Templars into Hammer of Wrath / Templar spam. It should be pretty similar for 4 and 3 cost Templars, maybe an extra Blade of Justice here and there for Holy Power generation if you're playing 4. But for the 1 minute go, when you don't have wings, it's going to be pretty much the exact same, just instead of Hammer of Wrath, it's probably going to be Blade of Justice / Judgment instead. Unless you get a Hammer of Wrath proc, you get a Wings proc during your short go, you kind of just play it the exact same for the most part. You pretend you didn't, but you do weave in the Hammer of Wraths instead as much as you can. Then for the 30-second go, it's really simple. Just get 4 or 5 Holy Power, Templars, Wake, Templars, that's your mini go. Then it's just the general rotation from there. And that's it for rotation. And now we're on to 3's comps. So Reck can kind of play with almost any spec. Some are obviously better than others, but you can probably get decently high with pretty much anything. The big 3 that are the best are definitely Ret War, Ret Hunter, and Ret DH. Ret War is Ret Warrior. Mistweaver got nerfed a bit to the point where other healers are comparable with it in the comp, I think. If you just play with whatever healer's meta or Mistweaver, you can do really well. So right now it'd probably be with Prez, Holy Priest, Archery, or Mistweaver. Ret Hunter is kind of similar. It works with a ton of healers, but right now the best are going to be Prez and Holy Priest. But Ardruid's pretty good, and Disc is actually not the worst for the comp. Ret DH is also kind of the same, but also works really well with Arshaman right now, so its best 3 are going to be either Holy Priest, Prez, or Arshaman. Then some other comps that work but aren't super meta are going to be Ret Demo. I still think this comp's insane. I just haven't played it much this season. Ret Rogue is also pretty good. It can work with Outlaw or Sub. Outlaw is probably the best right now, and Ret Windwalker is pretty decent, definitely glad viable, but I'm not sure much more than that. Those are the main ones I've seen, but some other comps can work too, so don't be afraid of trying whatever you think could be fun. And that's it for me. Hope you guys enjoyed. Peace.